It was a quiet Saturday morning when my aunt called, asking if I could watch over my little cousin for the day. At first, I hesitated. I had errands, plans of my own, but something in her tired voice made me agree. Within an hour, 10-year-old Horace was at my door, clutching a worn backpack and wearing that mischievous grin only little boys seem to master. He chattered nonstop as we left my apartment, asking where we were going, but I didn't answer right away. Instead, I drove aimlessly through familiar streets until an idea struck, one that felt both impulsive and inevitable. My old house, I finally said, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. His eyes lit up with curiosity. It had been years since I'd seen it. After my family moved away, we'd lost all connection to the place. Yet, as I parked on the cracked driveway, the sight of its weathered walls and leaning porch sent a strange ache through my chest. The house stood quiet, abandoned but not entirely lifeless. Vines crept up the facade, and faded curtains still clung to the windows. Horace wasted no time darting toward the front steps, pushing the creaky door open as though he owned the place. Inside, dust hung in the air, disturbed by our footsteps. The living room greeted me like a forgotten memory. The chipped mantel, the faint stains on the carpet, the faint smell of wood, and something sweet I couldn't name. Horace ran down the hallway, calling out that he'd found a secret room. I let him explore, choosing instead to stand by the living room window, tracing shapes in the grime of the glass. That was when I saw it. On the far wall, barely clinging to the faded wallpaper, was a note. Yellowed and torn at the corners, it was scrawled in handwriting I knew all too well. "I'll love you forever. Wait for me here.
Sarah."
Her name leapt from the paper and wrapped around my mind like ivy, pulling me into the past. I could almost see her there again, in her school uniform, with her shy smile and those deep brown eyes that made everything else disappear. I remembered our secret meetings in this house when no one was around, how we'd sit in this very room dreaming of a future we were too young to understand. We thought nothing could pull us apart. Lost in the memory, I didn't hear the soft footsteps behind me. "Hello," a familiar voice said. I turned, heart pounding, and froze. There she was, standing in the doorway as though the years had never passed. Older now, yes, but still her Sarah. Her eyes met mine, and the silence between us said more than words ever could. And just like that, I knew this day was about to change everything. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The years stretched between us like an invisible wall, yet her presence felt achingly familiar. Sarah shifted her weight, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture I'd seen 100 times before. She gave a faint, almost apologetic smile. "I didn't expect to see you here," she murmured, her voice softer than I remembered, but just as warm. I swallowed hard, trying to mask my surprise. "Neither did I admitted. I thought you'd moved away." "I did," she said simply, stepping further inside. Her eyes swept over the room, and for a fleeting second, I caught a glimpse of nostalgia in them. But sometimes, I come back to remember. Horace's laughter echoed from down the hallway, breaking the tension. Sarah followed the sound briefly before turning back to me. "Your little brother?" she asked. "My cousin," I corrected. "I'm just looking after him today." She nodded, leaning lightly against the wall, her gaze settling on me now. Those deep brown eyes hadn't lost their ability to unnerve me. We stood there in silence until she gestured to the sagging couch. "Sit. I think this place has missed you." Her smile was hesitant, but it cracked something open in me. I found myself sitting on the couch while she lowered herself beside me, her hands folded in her lap. For a while, we simply talked about the house, about our school days, about how much this neighborhood had changed. The years fell away with each memory we unpacked, laughter softening the edges of old wounds. "You know," she said after a pause, her voice dropping low, "I used to come here every weekend for months after you left. I thought maybe one day you'd come back, and we could start again." Her confession settled in my chest like a weight. My fingers instinctively brushed against hers, and she didn't pull away. I searched her face, trying to read the emotions behind her quiet smile. "Why didn't you tell me you were still here?" I asked. She looked down at our intertwined fingers. Because life happened, she said finally. And I thought it was better this way. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but the words caught in my throat. The warmth of her hand in mine, the familiar scent of her perfume, the memories swirling around us, it was easier to believe that maybe fate had brought us here. But even as her head rested lightly on my shoulder, a strange hesitation lingered in her eyes. Something unspoken. Something she wasn't ready to tell me yet. And in that quiet, I began to wonder if I truly wanted to know. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the living room floor. The air inside the house grew heavy with the weight of unsaid words. Sarah's head still rested on my shoulder, but her fingers had gone still in mine, as though she were retreating into some private thought she couldn't share. Horace bounded into the room, his cheeks flushed from running around. He clutched a broken toy soldier he'd found upstairs. "Look," he beamed, holding it up proudly. I forced a smile. "That's a good find," I said, ruffling his hair. He flopped onto the floor to play quietly. Sarah's eyes followed him for a moment before she gently slipped her hand out of mine. "I should tell you something," she said finally, her tones so soft I almost didn't catch it over Horace's chatter. I turned to her, my heart tightening. "What is it?" Sarah stared down at her hands, twisting a silver ring around her finger. For the first time since she'd walked through the door, she seemed fragile, even afraid. "I didn't plan on running into you today," she began. "But seeing you again brought back everything I thought I'd forgotten. Everything we were." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of both relief and dread. She hesitated, then met my gaze, and I knew whatever came next would change everything. "I'm married," she whispered. Her words landed like a stone in my chest. I blinked, unable to form a response. "Married? To who? When?" Why didn't I know? Sarah seemed to read the questions in my expression and added quietly, "To someone you know." Her hands trembled as she folded them in her lap. "I married Imran. Your old best friend."
Imran.
The name struck me like a blow. My closest friend through high school, the one person I'd trusted with everything, even with her. I felt my jaw clench, anger beginning to boil beneath the surface. But more than anger, it was the bitter taste of betrayal that filled my mouth. She reached for my hand again, but this time I pulled away. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. I thought if I stayed away, it would be easier. But seeing you again today." I cut her off with a sharp breath, standing now. "You chose him," I said quietly. "And neither of you told me." She flinched as if struck. I didn't know how." I turned toward the doorway, needing air, needing space to think. Behind me, Sarah's quiet sobs mixed with the distant sound of Horace's toy clattering to the floor. The weight of her confession hung heavy between us, and though I wanted to walk away, something deep inside me still ached to stay. The night air outside was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain and earth. I stepped onto the porch, letting the door creak shut behind me. My chest felt tight, as though the house itself had closed in on me. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the yard where Horace now sat on the steps, legs dangling, his toy soldier forgotten in his hands. He looked up at me, his innocent eyes full of quiet concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I forced a faint smile, crouching beside him. "Yeah, buddy," I said, though my voice sounded far away, even to me. From inside, I heard the faint shuffle of Sarah's footsteps. She didn't come out, but I felt her gaze through the cracked window. For a fleeting second, our eyes met, her silhouette framed by the glow of the dying sun. There was sorrow in her face, but no excuses left. I straightened and reached for Horace's hand. "Come on," I murmured. As we walked down the driveway, each step away from the house felt both heavier and lighter, as if I was leaving behind something that had weighed me down for years. My fingers tightened around Horace's, and he leaned into me just enough to remind me that some bonds endure. In my mind, I replayed everything: Sarah's confession, her trembling hands, the memories we'd once shared in those quiet rooms. I thought of Imran, too, and the sting of his silence. It would have been easy to let anger take over, to hold on to bitterness. But as we reached the car, I realized something. Holding on only gave the past more power over me. And I was done letting it. Horace climbed into the back seat, already distracted by his toy soldier again. I lingered outside for just a moment longer, looking back at the house. Its windows glowed faintly in the dusk, and for the first time, it felt like just another empty building, not a shrine to what might have been. I slipped into the driver's seat and started the engine. The quiet hum filled the silence between us as I steered the car back toward the main road. Horace broke the quiet after a while, his small voice tentative. "I like your old house," he said. "It's kind of magical." I chuckled softly despite the lump in my throat. "Yeah," I replied. It was. The road stretched ahead, lined with streetlights flickering to life. Through the windshield, I caught one last glimpse of the old house in the rearview mirror, and then it disappeared into the night. That day, I thought to myself as I drove, I took my little cousin to my old house. But in truth, it was me who needed to leave something behind. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to move on.